Hello and welcome to my live. I'm going to be chatting with Zana Morris of Strong Nutrients. I'm just going to get. So hopefully Zana can join us. There we go. Hi.
Hello.
I'm almost slightly nervous at how effortless that was.
Likewise. That was
Okay, let's
too
stop
efficient for me.
Hello, Zana. How are you? It's lovely to see you again this week, actually.
Oh gosh, it's lovely to see you. And God, isn't the weather stunning? Oh,
Absolutely magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. I think what we started the week with that rain, was it Monday or Tuesday? No, it was Tuesday, where literally several days fell in one day. One morning was it. Yeah, it kind of rattled us all. But
yes.
it's beautiful now. So, of course, for anyone joining, I am today joined with Zana Morris from Strong Nutrients. As you can see, I have my little collection here on the side. I have really loved taking your supplements over the last couple of months and feel that they've given me a huge boost. And of course, because I've had a couple of weeks away, quite stressful couple of weeks, you reminded me about the chill pill.
Yes.
And how much I needed my chill pill. Which, yes, I've been taking that this week. It was very much needed. But of course, the whole concept of this talk really is about us finding out your tips about staying stronger for longer. You know, maintaining our strength, our vitality, and of course our flexibility as well. And anything and everything that we can do to help ourselves along, because maybe the things that we were doing before aren't quite working anymore.
Our bodies change. Our bodies change. You need to get to this point to realize they do actually change. Yes.
Yeah.
I
need to be putting in, whether it be supplements, whether it be exercise, good sleep, and of course protein. I mean, I really, my husband is chirping at me all the time, going, eat your eggs, do this, do that. He really is a super healthy, as I explained to you. He's an exercise nut.
Yes.
But he's right. I hate to admit it, but my husband has been right all this time.
All along. Very annoying, isn't it? Yes. Yes. It's you've sort of hit the nail on the head there. As we get older, we are, in a way, I suppose, organically losing our lean body mass, our muscle mass. It's gradually, oh my gosh, a friend of mine, a nutritionist, used to describe it. Terrible way of describing it, but brilliant at the same time. We're leaking protein is the way he would describe it. Which is awful but true. We are, from about the age of 30, I'm always saying this, and it's approximate, it'll vary from individual to individual, but we're losing around half a pound of muscle a year, which doesn't seem like much until you hit 50, and that's a whole 10 pounds of actual lean body mass. And that's protein out of everything. That's out of bones, that's out of skins, that's affecting collagen, it's the muscle on our arms, it's what's holding us upright. So the whole thing of staying stronger, we need to hang on to that lean body mass. And in essence, we need to do everything we can to preserve it and recover it.
Yeah.
And that's it in a nutshell. And exactly as you say, number of things come into play here. But protein, obviously, it's the only food group, if you like, that we eat that builds that lean body mass. The fat doesn't do it, and I'm all for fats. The carbohydrates and sugars won't do it. It's only protein. That's the only food group that will actually build the structural tissue of our body.
And of course, in perimenopause and menopause, it is even more important to have our protein for that exact reason. But also, the more muscle you have in your body, the more fat it breaks down. So, you start losing that balance as well.
Yeah, muscle is very active. It's always twitching and always moving. So even if you're asleep, your muscle is actually actively eating into calories. So as you lose muscle, your metabolism can drop too, which it's sort of to add insult to injury. it slows it all down. So exactly that. The muscle is super active tissue. And it literally does help burn the calories as well, without question. And the perimenopause and menopause game, there's the hormones, as we all kind of know, that influence our body's capacity to build or retain that lean body mass and that muscle mass. And they include things like testosterone, which can drop. We all produce it, and in women it can drop further once we go into that perimenopause. So there's no question that the odds are sort of working against us. So we just have to work a bit more cleverly and a bit harder.
Exactly.
Not even necessarily hard, but actually just more clever, more intelligently.
Smarter, just you know,
smarter.
Understand what the mechanics are and why things are breaking down. Because I mean, I explained to you that I'm of a generation of women that my mother never explained menopause, didn't admit to perimenopause or menopause. I mean, it's fine because that was their generation. We are so fortunate that everybody is talking about it now, and it's perfectly understandable. You know, we can have these open conversations. As I said, I talk about it at my dinner table with my sons and my husband. And they're like, yeah, we know.
Yes.
But I think it's important. But the thing is, I literally had no warning. And I've always taken the short route. It wasn't difficult to lose the weight. And then suddenly, everything suddenly changed. And then I was like, oh my God, I should have listened. I should have put in the work then. Because it's really, we need to start putting in the work earlier to feel the benefit in our mid-40s.
If you can. So for anyone listening under the age of 40, yes, please do, because it makes life so much easier, and quite frankly it's almost effortless for many. Now, not all, in fairness, but almost effortless for many if you do. But there's no question, there's three things that seem to occur in once we hit that 40s bracket. Now that could be late 30s for some, it could be more into the 50s for others, but in that sort of period. The obvious one is that whole perimenopause and menopause, and estrogen levels drop, or at least fluctuate, and that can have an impact on our insulin and our insulin resistance, if you like. So in English, the fast track on that one is, it means we end up gaining fat around the belly. But there's two other things. There's potentially now, once you're into your fourth decade, there's potentially now 4 decades of maybe not eating as well as we could have. So you might have that build up. It's not that you had carbs last night, but you might have had 40 years of just eating too many. So there's a slight imbalance from that affecting insulin. And then, and we were saying this the other day, honestly, most women in their 40s and 50s are doing not twice as much, I'd say about 4 or 5 times as much as they did in their 20s. Stress levels, cortisol, it's the hormone that wakes us up. It's like the coffee shot. It's the one that can keep you awake at night. It also helps break down muscle further. So we're already aging and losing muscle organically, if you like. Excess cortisol attacks the muscle so that the body can then not only lose your muscle, but the body gets it to get sugars out of it and release it into the bloodstream. So now your body's acted like it's eaten sugar as well. So the stress is both targeting your strength and the muscle itself, as well as building the body fat around the belly.
And then if you're also one of those people who stress eats, just raising hands slowly here, when they're stressed, that in itself, I mean, I didn't even realize there was this massive combination of that going on. And so it is going to all sit around.
To sit there, and the reason you'll often feel like stress eating is because the stress, that cortisol is breaking down the muscle to access. Basically what it's doing is it's trying to get at the sugar to give you the energy to fight or run. But obviously we're not fighting or running in this day and age, or rarely, occasionally we might be. So we're not actually physically using that sugar for energy. So the insulin gets released to get it out of the bloodstream, and then the hormone that comes in next is ghrelin. And that's the one that makes you crave. So now you're stress eating. You've acted like you've eaten sugar before you even got to it, just by being stressed. The sugar's gone into the bloodstream in the same way as if you'd eaten it. So you're going to crave more sugars, and you're on a cycle. Even if you didn't start by eating the sugar, the stress can help you get on that spiral. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I mean, we're in that generation, the 40s, 50s, we're that sandwiched generation where we're not only potentially looking after children, but we're also potentially looking after our elderly parents. And that creates even more of
It's a pressure. And then most are, I mean, there was once upon a time, and I have to say this carefully, I'm not sure what women's equality did for us, because once upon a time you could just focus on those two jobs. Now most people have a full-time job as well.
Do more. But it's okay. I did cheekily start watching And Just Like That. And may I just say, I'm not going to give too much away because I will literally be, for anyone who hasn't watched, but they do touch a little bit on this exact topic where we're trying to do everything. You know, we're still trying to look great,
Yes.
be fantastic in our jobs, and or have businesses. For many women that are now actually opening up new businesses as well. We still have children going through. I have one who's going to be doing GCSEs next year. And then of course with our parents as well, potentially aging or having a health crisis, and also in our 40s, 50s, health issues start hitting us as well.
Yes.
So
yeah,
it can feel so much, and it can be. So if we haven't put those steps in place to handle the stress, our mental health, build that muscle so that we can be stronger and more vital, and handle, as you say, these insulin spikes, we could potentially put ourselves in a bit of a pickle.
yeah, and I don't like homing in on that one too much, but I do agree. Yeah, I do. You don't want to ignore it. It's your body, and I have this line, and it's not my line, but I think it's a great one, where you really, and we all know it, we've all heard a version before, we only have the one body. There's everything else we can kind of change. You can't change, and when things go wrong, it is so frustrating to think you may have been able to avoid it. And I say that carefully because I appreciate that's not always the case. I really do. But there are certain things that we can do that actually are simple. And I think that's the one thing you were mentioning today, about simple things people can do. Not necessarily, oh my God, you have to now dedicate the next 6 months to focusing on, but just little things that if you draw down and do, that can really make a big difference over a period of time. Yeah.
That, I mean, we've already, I know you and I could probably speak until tomorrow. I don't even touch the Zana and Zana are like touching away. But I think that's what we really wanted to focus on. So, okay, so potentially like myself, who's caught up late, what can we start doing from today? Small changes that are not going to take huge amounts of time, because nobody has the time, but that you can put in and that can actually end up making a bigger difference over time.
Yes.
And therefore have that stronger for longer.
Good. Yeah. I was thinking about this. Let's just do it. Okay, I'll give you one exercise one nutrition one, and then we can look at the supplement kind of direction.
Perfect.
Let's do it that way. So the fastest, okay, I'm sure, and I really mean this, because again, not only do most, and I really mean fabulous when I say this, women in this age bracket, not only are they looking after all their kids' parents, their jobs and their careers and their businesses, they're usually training as well. But for those of you that either aren't or can't quite always get the time in there, honestly, I am a huge fan, as some people will know, of short, high intensity training. I always laugh because the anagram doesn't work well with that one, but it's the short, high intensity training, the short hit. You can do the maths yourself and spell it out. But between, honestly, anything from a minute to even 10 minutes, it doesn't have to be the 20 minutes, and it certainly doesn't need to be the half hour. And it can be as simple as, if your knees and back and hips are all good and allow for it, full set of, as many squats as you can do in 1 minute.
Yep.
If they don't allow for it, you can stand in front of a sofa, sit up, sit down for as many sit-ups and sit-downs as you can do in a minute. It could be press-ups. If you're not good at press-ups, you can do them with knees on the floor, or you can literally, as you've put the kettle on to boil, you may need to put a bit more water in it just to give yourself a little bit longer, do press-ups against the countertop at an angle, and just do as many as you can in 1 minute. Now, if you did that once a day, every single day, you will notice a difference in your overall fitness, even in the muscle tone, because you have a natural little growth hormone hit when you do that. And that's the hormone that helps push protein back into everything, if you like. It sort of repairs and recovers it. It's one we release, or we're supposed to release when we sleep. So just 1 minute a day. If you've more time, you go for a walk. And I think we were mentioning this. If you're someone who likes to walk, you could occasionally just do a quick sprint and then slow down, and a quick sprint and slow down. So you can alternate sprints, and it could literally be a 10-second sprint, just up until you run out of breath, then slow down again.
People driving past going, what is she doing?
Pretend you're running for a bus, even though there mightn't be any bus there. Just do it really quickly, slow down. And you could do, if you swim, do swim sprints. If you cycle, do cycle sprints. And it literally could just be a short little run of it. If you're going for a walk and you have a hill, try and sprint up the hill. It's really just short. It could be 5, 10, 15 seconds at a go, and then you cycle it. So you slow it down, you build it up again. And even 5 or 6 minutes of that would make a difference. So honestly, if every day you were able to just do anything from 60 seconds, as I said, of those squats type ones, you could do that by a desk. Or if you're getting out and just do an interval, that impacts the hormonal levels, your natural growth hormone, which seems to impact insulin. We're back down to helping get that down as well. It gets the heart rate up, it increases the oxygen intake. It does help the body start building muscle. You get it into more of that muscle recovery. And building muscle, sorry, everybody probably knows this, but I'm going to say it anyway. At our age, we're not building muscle, we're recovering it. If by the time we hit 50, and I know a lot of you won't be 50, you'll be younger, but if you're 40, it's 5 pounds approximately. If you're 60, it could be as much as 15 pounds. So just think in terms of recovering it. Forget about building it. Just think of getting it back.
Yeah, I need to.
Yeah. So
get it all back. But it's
so that would be the exercise game.
If the little bits you do become accumulative,
Yes.
and as that saying goes, the more you do, the more you can do.
Yes.
So it's about starting small, but then just keeping it going and maintaining that, and then building on that progress.
Yes, you'll suddenly find you want to do more. You feel like doing more, as opposed to making yourself do more, which is a very different sensation. So that would be the fast track, like the tiny little simple hack for the training aspect. Nutrition, and you've already mentioned this, and I would honestly, okay, there's lots of ways I can describe this. There's lots of angles you can go on. You could look at high fats, you could look at intermittent fasting, but before you look at any of that, probably the simplest little changes. If you're someone that does eat carbohydrates, and by that I mean the starchy ones, the breads, the rice, the pasta, or if you're a bit of a sugar addict, just start looking at protein as a way to replace it. It's probably the simplest way of putting it. So protein being your fish, your meat, your eggs. It can be things like protein shakes. It can be things like cottage cheese. It can be things like lentils and pulses and the likes of that. Yes, exactly that one. Yes, beautifully presented. But the protein, okay, too much protein will cause a small insulin rise, but nothing compared to your carbohydrates or your sugars.
Yeah.
And protein, as I said, it will break down a bit more slowly than the sugars, but as we were saying earlier, it's the one that helps repair or recover that lean body mass. And particularly, I'm a big fan of taking more in the evenings than rather with the breakfast. And it's mainly because, gosh, if you all get this, you're getting a lot. It took me a long while to master this one. Our hormonal levels change as the day goes on. So what's going on in our body at 10 a.m. is completely different to what's going on in our body at 10 p.m. Totally different things. In terms of cortisol, insulin, obviously you have hormones like melatonin. You have all sorts of hormones all playing and fluctuating as the day goes on. And it seems like our body can deal with foods that cause an insulin increase better at night. So another way of putting that is, if you have a breakfast that causes too much of an insulin surge, so a high sugar breakfast, your insulin is up for the day. It's very hard to get it down. You'll be hungry all day. Yeah. So you're better off in the morning leaning towards a protein and fat breakfast. So rather than a carbohydrate one. So by that we'd mean the eggs. Yogurt would work well. Things like smoked salmon would work well. It could be anything from avocado you put in there to any kind of, some people like smoked salmon, cream cheese, that kind of thing. As an aside, fat is the only food group that does not cause the body to raise insulin at all. So there's no, it just keeps it lovely and steady. Protein increases it a little bit, which is why, back to my point there of the breakfast, and if you can get this, have slightly less protein in the morning, because if you have too much, your insulin can go up. Right. The equivalent to eggs works great. In the evening, get it in. Really, honestly, I've hardly ever, I don't think I've ever met someone that is eating too much protein in the evening. I might have, in my 30 years of a career, found maybe 2.
So, I'm pretty sure my husband would join.
Okay, maybe he might be in there. It's hard to eat too much. For most women, it's very hard to eat too much because we're eating so far removed from how much we could be eating. And it feels like a lot when you're not used to it. So to put it in perspective, we're probably looking at, if you do eat fish or meat, I would be encouraging my clients to get at least 200 to 240 grams of fish or meat in the evening. So that's like 2 salmon fillets or 2 chicken breasts. And for those that find that's a little bit too much, I'll encourage them to have maybe yogurt and fruit or the protein shake as a dessert afterwards to kind of top it up. And that tends to do it.
Having a protein shake at night, to me, that is such a morning thing. So that's interesting to be able to do that.
It works beautifully as a breakfast, like a smoothie. It works really well as that. And you can mix it, as you know, in milk or in yogurt. Or if some people I have that eat porridge, I actually get them to put 1 or 2 teaspoons into the porridge to get the protein into it. So it works great for that. But it works really nice as a dessert at night. And casein protein, which is the protein shake that you were showing there, it's the same protein you get in cheese or yogurt, that kind of protein. And it breaks down really slowly. And that's important for, well, 3 reasons, really. First is you get very little of an insulin rise. So it's very low glycemic, as they call it, which means your insulin stays low and steady. So it's much easier when you're trying to target fat around the belly in particular. It's great to have those slow release proteins. It also keeps you fuller for much longer. So you kind of stay steady with it. And that slow release means your body utilizes almost all of it. It can get all of it. It's got time to get it in. So you firm up faster. Simply back to the first one. So the casein is great, and it works great overnight while you're sleeping, because we can lose a lot of our body mass. I say a lot, it makes it sound like you've gone in the morning, but no, you lose a little bit overnight as you sleep. So it repairs and recovers and protects.
Right. Okay. So the best way, so a great nice breakfast of, say, eggs, a bit of avocado, basically my favorite way of starting the day, and then ending in the evening with salmon or chicken, and then potentially your shake. And the reason for this is we were talking about the intermittent fasting, because it'll help you to prolong that so you can actually hit your target the next morning.
Yes, that's the added bonus. That's the beautiful added bonus is I get clients all the time that tell me they could not for love nor money do intermittent fasting. And in fairness to them, they couldn't from where they were coming at. So I'm not saying it's in their head at all. They genuinely couldn't. And I'd find it very difficult personally if I had a very low protein evening meal. If I had a high carbohydrate meal, I am going to be starving the next morning, because my body flips into this sugar burning and it starts looking for more sugars. When you increase the protein in the evening, it becomes so much easier to stay steady into the next day. And it becomes also easier for some. Now, I'm not saying everyone has large breakfasts. Most people actually don't. But it does become easier to have a slightly smaller breakfast because you're not feeling as hungry, which also then keeps the insulin steady. Yeah. And now you've got a rhythm for the next day where you're not diving for the kind of cookie jar at 11 o'clock. Well, it'll kind of kill that.
Because we talk about that, because I tend to wake up very early. I have 2 cats who always delighted to see me at 4:30. So by 6, 7 o'clock, I feel like I've had quite a long day. By the time it gets to 11, I understand that British thing of 11 C's.
Yes.
Because that's when I want my tea. And they say tea or coffee is a gateway drug to biscuits, because I just want to drink it. It doesn't work without it. Yes. So it's really tricky. So you can do really good things. You can have the best intentions, but it's that you need to know those trigger points. So for example, if it's the 11 C's, or if it's that 5 o'clock crazy hour, or the witching hour, as we used to know, the kids are smaller. It's knowing when the cravings hit, and then having the correct things around, and what will feed you and what will keep you steady.
feed you. And that's a lovely point about that witching hour at 5 o'clock. I will encourage clients around about 4. If they find that some of that happens or they get that dip at 4 o'clock, that's another time the protein shake can work, or any form of protein. So again, you could go for yogurt and fruit, you could go for cottage cheese, you could get a protein pot from Pret, but get a little bit of a protein based something around about that time, and it just carries you through. It works super well.
Because those insulin spikes, they hit our mental health as well. So when we're having, say, for example, the witching hour at 5, when we're feeling super, super stressed, and it's like, God, everything's going wrong and whatever, that's when you really need your insulin to be steady. And it's not the time to kind of pop open one of the kids' packets of crisps, because, you know,
it will send it on it'll send it on a spiral and just make it worse. It's so true. It's so true. I find when you lean into, and I don't mean super high protein, for some it will feel high now in fairness, but I don't mean an incredibly high protein diet, but when you get more protein in, you do tend to just mentally feel far more steady. And because it stabilizes that insulin, they seem to have a nice knock-on effect with each other, just to keep it calm. And that chill pill you mentioned at the beginning, which I love. I honestly, that chill pill, almost, not all now, but almost all the clients that come to me are looking, they're basically looking to target the belly fat. Now, not all, they're looking for strength too, and they're looking for all sorts of things. But in almost every case, not every case, but almost every case, that chill pill is the top of my list of what they need to be taking. It's primarily just vitamin B5, but it supports the adrenal glands. And if they're on a bit of an overdrive, and cortisol is getting released at night when it's not supposed to. Cortisol is supposed to wake you up in the morning. It's great for that. It's your coffee shot. You don't want it releasing at night while you're either trying to get to sleep or during the night when you are asleep, and it wakes you up at 2 in the morning and you're looking at the ceiling. The chill pill really seems to help get that balance back. And as I said, back to the fat loss around the belly, that cortisol also helps encourage that fat gain. So the more you can stabilize it, i.e. help support your adrenals, then indirectly, the easier it is to lose the fat. And the less you crave, it just gets the whole thing back into rhythm. They all tie together. It's really about getting your body balanced and back to where it should be.
Well, I have to say, for me, and when we talk about stress eat, I think I don't smoke. I never have, but I can see there's a correlation. Is that panic? So where people be, you know, taking in, dragging in the smoke or whatever the term, I would be with the packet of M&Ms and doing this. And it's not necessarily wanting an M&M, but it's that, and it's the same with those little tiny packets of crisps. There's so many women I've spoken to that go, they are absolutely deadly in the house. So we may have them for the lunch boxes for the kids, but if there are any left over and we hit that 5 o'clock spike, that is what we will end up going for, because it's that, because we're trying to, and that is actually the exact opposite of what we're supposed to be doing.
Of what we should be.
Like, woo!
Yeah. And I don't know, and I think that this is too much of a conversation for now. I'm not sure if part of that eating is just because you're given treats as a child because you were good, and in your head it all gets associated, or if it's just the insulin, or it's probably a bit of both. But it is exactly what we should be trying not to do. That cortisol, again, it's adrenaline and cortisol get released, and both of those are designed to get your heart rate up, get your breathing up, hence the effect. Everything changes. The eyes dilate, the body digests in a different way. It starts pulling all of the sort of, I suppose, nutrients out of the digestive system into the muscles, so that you're ready to fight this thing or run. And if you don't do either, you're almost in a panic attack because your body's not utilizing it. It's like having high energy drinks and then sitting still. That's what stress kind of does to us. Because literally, the eyes dilate when you're under stress. That's what those hormones are supposed to do. So they are acting like an energy drink. And you're supposed to fight or run afterwards, go box or go sprint. But most of us don't. We go for the cupboard. and
then you're trying to deal with stressful situations which may involve, and I mean, I know it's not stressful, but, you know, children whose homework haven't been completed, or in my case last night, having to make salt dough for these press things, these art things that I didn't know anything about. And my son and I were trying to make this dough, and I was like, I really need some crisps or some M&Ms right now.
Yes.
Really what I should have been doing is take Red. So in terms of taking this and for it to really be working, what would you suggest in terms of if you wake up, say for example, like at 7 o'clock, let's be reasonable, it's 7, and you go to bed approximately 9, 10.
Right. I would look at two things. So the chill pill, it will depend on how well you sleep at night, is the way I recommend people take it. So if you're someone who sleeps poorly, and by that I mean either has difficulty going to sleep or difficulty falling back to sleep if you wake up. Really, those two. And also, actually, I kind of call it airplane sleep. You know, that kind of sleep where you're not sure if you're quite getting into it. Then I would take them at night. If you don't mind capsules, I don't, but I know some people don't like taking too many capsules at once. I would be taking between 4 to 5 of those as I go to bed. And a lot of people take magnesium and they work super well with alongside magnesium. They work differently. Both of them help the cortisol levels, but they work from different angles. So I would take them all before bed. That said, if you're somebody who either doesn't like taking lots of capsules or your sleep is okay, but generally speaking, you do know you're doing a lot and you feel under pressure or stressed, then divide them throughout the day. 3 with breakfast, 3 with the evening meal works super well. That's the original way of taking them, really, is breakfast and evening meal. I just personally am terrible for, I mean, you'd think in my profession, I shouldn't admit to this, but I'm terrible for remembering supplements. I'll remember them in the morning brilliantly. I'll remember them before bed. The bits in the middle, I kind of forget.
Because we're too busy. We're like, and also I do honestly believe that if you have in our types of work, you're never in the same place.
Yes.
My husband go to the same desk and he has all of his stuff everywhere, but because he's there and so he's aware of it. I'm not allowed to supplements, by the way. I'm not allowed to put them away because then he forgets about them, and he's actually right.
Yes.
So obviously in the morning we go, we see them, we take them, and then they'll be next to the bed, and so that makes it easier. So it's just about knowing our rhythms, knowing what
it's about knowing your rhythm. And then the other thing, and this is tying back, I know we were speaking about the muscle mass and protecting that and all the rest, but actually dealing with regards to the stress eating. Now this is a brilliant hack for those of you who haven't heard of it before. Many of you may have, but so if you eat sugar on its own, it's going to go straight into the bloodstream. You're going to get this great big insulin spike. You're going to get this dip afterwards. If you have protein with the sugar, it's going to slow down that hit into the bloodstream, if you like. Right. So you won't have such a hard hit. It won't do as much damage. So my recommendation with clients, obviously in a perfect world, I'd be encouraging them to avoid all of those extra little additives if at all possible. But where it's not possible, as they all live in the real world too, weirdly, I'd say go for protein first. Nothing's banned. You can have those M&Ms afterwards if you still feel like it, or the crisps afterwards if you still feel like it. Go for the protein first. So either the protein shake, or it could be simple as a piece of chicken. Just go for some protein first, and then see how you feel. If you still feel like it, have them. I think chances are you either won't feel like it or you'll feel like less. But even still, even if you eat the whole lot, it'll do less damage because the protein will help slow down that hit.
Yeah.
And that's one. So next time you're sitting there fighting with a dough, oh gosh, you say that's not really stressful. I'd be totally stressed out if you gave me that job.
And the best part is he somehow used some self-raising flour. So when it was raising, it was like, that's not right. And so we actually got Ninja's paw print in it. And then this, there were not enough M&Ms in this house yesterday.
Yeah. So next time, have your protein shake before your M&Ms, and then that will work better.
So, I was just going to say, actually, on the days, for those of you who aren't obviously, who are like me, who do turn to naughty things, naughty treats when you hit a spike, I always find that on those days where I'm being really, really good and everything is going well, I do crave things less and everything seems to work really well. And then there'll be those days where everything goes to hell in a handbasket. Yeah. And I just literally cannot stop hoovering up all the bad treats in the house and then blame it on the youngest child. But yeah, so I guess that's a really great tip for me, so that if I'm having that, I'm just going to go for a little bit of natural yogurt, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Natural
Perfect.
yogurt. Perfect.
Yeah, that would work perfectly. And the thing to remember is, and this sounds a bit ridiculous, but your day starts the night before with nutrition.
Same.
So, however, if you're having a day that slightly goes to hell, there's a very good chance, and I'm not saying in every case, but I would estimate at least 9 out of 10 cases, if not 98% of the time, the night before the evening meal wasn't as good as it could have been. And by good in this instance, I mean, now I haven't mentioned vegetables here. You can have as many of those as you like, so I'm not limiting that. Yeah. But I'm talking about adding in that protein, and there's a very good chance there wasn't enough protein in the evening before, and that can set you off. And then often if you haven't eaten enough the night before, and particularly in terms of protein, you're going to eat more the next morning. And if you eat too much the next day, or it leans a bit towards the sugar, your insulin's going to go up there, and now you're off. Your insulin's up for the day. You're going to crave all day. So if that happens, don't give yourself a hard time. Just get more protein in that day, and that night, try and look at that evening meal and just get the protein in, so that for the next day, you're back in your equilibrium. You've got your rhythm.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, if I just look at this week, how my eating has declined and how my cravings have gone up day after day, because the days have been busier and there's been loads of other things coming in. That's absolutely, I never would have considered it. But as a beauty and skincare, we are told that, you know, if you're looking at your nails or your hair and it's looking really awful, you look back 8 to 12 weeks and look at what your diet and what supplements you were taking or how you were behaving 8 to 12 weeks. And that's what's happening in terms of your skin, your hair, your nails right now. It's really interesting that you say that. So yeah, it's all about, there's clues. There's clues yesterday.
It doesn't just happen.
Yeah, I mean, every day I've been waking up going, right, today is going to be a good day, and then reaching for something naughty, and actually not realizing that if I would sort of know what the day was like if I just remembered the evening.
Remember try and prepare it the night before. And it's not even saying you can't have a bit of, you know, as you say, the naughty food the night before. You can. Okay, perfect will be you didn't. But if you do, that's fine. But still, just all I'm saying is get the protein in too. Just get that in too. And little by little you find you don't actually want the sugar or the sweet in the same way. It'll just, your body will begin to shift for you without you having to struggle and fight it.
Yeah. So it's about breaking the chain, so to speak. Create a better one. And it's also, I mean, it's just habits, really. It's about changing certain habits, because obviously sugar is incredibly addictive. And if that's what we turn to, and I think you touched on it. I mean, I am on a couch here. I could lie back and we can have a total couch session talking about, you know, how we were treated as kids, and that, you know, if you're being good, you can have a sweetie, or shit, you're having a bad day. That is, as a South African, that's how I was brought up.
Well, so I mean, I would have been that. To me, it was if you did something good, you had a chance of getting it. Yes. So, understandably, I mean, I honestly respect to all parents. I mean it, having to put up with us lot.
Well, at the moment we have every day, because it's obviously so hot. Every day, oh look, you know, I've got my test result back. They went really well. Can I have an ice cream? I mean, what hard, I'm telling you.
Oh, I believe it.
We touched on the importance, obviously, of protein, and really, really can't stress it enough. And of course, just short bursts of exercise. But of course, now we need to talk about supplements, because I know that you did mention 3 specific ones that were really important.
So we've obviously mentioned the protein over there. We mentioned that's a lovely casein. And I mean, just a note on that. And there's, our lovely chill pill. A lovely chill pill. And I think we hit upon the magnesium there as well in my passing. Magnesium is one of these that, honestly, the more you look into it and the more of what it does, it's I mean, it's involved about, when I was first, I mean, I've been in this industry a little bit too long, and that's enough to say about that. It used to be 400 processes, it's gone up to 600. I don't think magnesium changes. I think we're just discovering more and more of what the thing actually does. And again, I know people know this, but I think we can forget it. Vitamins and minerals will be involved with loads of processes.
Mm-hmm.
They're never just involved with just one thing.
Exactly.
They're catalysts for so many things. Magnesium, I mean, the top, I think, 4, if I was to think of it, is it helps the regulation of melatonin, which is the hormone that helps us sleep.
Yeah.
It does seem to help the body reduce cortisol, which is the hormone that wakes us up if it's in overdrive. A lot of people will know it because of it helps, you know, like your magnesium baths. It helps muscles relax. So you've got the contraction of relaxing. Your calcium helps them contract. Your magnesium helps them relax. So it's great for the heart and the heart functioning. And essential for that as such. It helps us absorb our calcium. And as estrogen levels drop, they say that our calcium levels, you can begin to lose that. So it helps us absorb that as well. And it helps us get rid of that sort of used up estrogen that can get recycled. And apparently it's not very good for us at all if it gets recycled. It needs to get out, and magnesium helps get rid of it. So I feel it's one of those that once we start into perimenopause, I think it's the one we should just be taking. I mean, I could be wrong, but all of my experience pretty much, and all of the things I can see and understand with it, and it does seem to make a difference. I mean, obviously the things people use it for often just as, you know, if they've got issues, they might use it for helping, you know, if they've constipation, it helps digestion. That's because it helps the muscle relax. But if I think of the effect on estrogen, the effect on the cortisol and all those sort of processes, and our muscle contraction, relaxation, because I don't know if you've noticed, I am in this industry, and oh my gosh, have I noticed, there's something about the years and how quickly your muscles fire up that begins to change just a little bit.
Yeah, that furnace is very difficult to turn on.
It's slightly different. And, you know, you used to be able to spring out of bed and do anything. I mean, I can spring out of bed and do a lot, but it's not quite as good as what it was. So, I mean, I'm a big believer you can do anything for as long as you like, but you just have to work a little bit more on it. And I think magnesium makes a difference to all of that. So for me, it's one of those that I think we should just be taking. If you're in perimenopause, menopause, that period, I just think it's almost a no-brainer. I think we should be taking it. Most adults aren't getting enough, and I think at our stage, our body seems to really utilize it and need it.
I was just going to say to you, because two things have just clicked in, because I noticed, and especially the more stress I get, because obviously then everything starts to seize up because you're stressed and you're not sleeping properly, and you know, you even standing stress. So a lot of well, there's a lot of tension on the body, and then it sets off other things, like for example pinched nose and blah blah blah, and then the next one you start getting muscle spasms. And you can see that little twitch. It's like, oh my God, what next? And it's just, the magnesium is just so, it's just so much easier because it helps that relax, it helps your sleep. But that, to be fair, old school me, all I thought magnesium did was to help you sleep. So it was like, oh, you know, and so you take it late afternoon, it'll, you know, help you. But actually, it is unbelievably vital.
It really is. And I just saw a question there of I think Joe asking how much. Really good question. Now it depends on the forms. There's lots of forms. Can I just say, for simplicity right now, don't get hung up on the form. We do citrate, which I think is very highly absorbed. Some people like the glycinate. There's taurate. There's all sorts of forms. The core thing that we're looking at is the magnesium. The other bit is what they bind to it, so we can utilize it, get it into the body and get it into the system as such. So it's the magnesium bit that's the most important bit. Of our citrate, I usually recommend between 200 to 400 milligrams, which is between 1 to 2 capsules. Usually at night, I find works best. It doesn't have to be, but I find that's what works best. Some people, what I think the best question to ask yourself is, if you find you get cramps, you need more than likely. It does help sleep. My general, and I say this with a little bit of caution, but my general gauge for myself personally is, I know if I've taken too much because it helps everything relax, which means you go to the loo, it'll just flush everything through. In English, if that's not happening, chances are your body's using it. I personally take between 2 to 3 of those. So that's between 4 up to 600 a night. If you eat a lot of calcium rich products, you will need a little bit more. because they work sort of in a way synergistically, or some might say they work against each other, depending on your point of view. The more calcium you have, the more magnesium you need, so to speak. So if you eat, and I do like, I don't have massive amounts, but I do like things like cottage cheese. I do like the protein shake, which is casein. I do like yogurts. So in that instance, you may want the 400 milligrams, even the 600.
Okay.
If you don't take any calcium products at all, you might find one is enough. But certainly the 200 mil, I would say 200 mg would be the basic start line.
Right. Okay. So that's that one there.
Yes. Magnesium Rocks.
And I'm saying, so I'm effectively going to be going on to 2 or 4 because there's been a lot of muscle cramping.
But yes,
it's been, and now I've got to fly. Like, everything's happening. But yeah, no, I think, is it right in saying that if you're looking at your lifestyle and say, for example, work is that much more stressful, or something has happened in your life that is really causing a lot of emotional stress, is that when you could look at something like this, for example, or the chill pill, and actually increase the levels?
Yes.
To kind
and if you're someone, and I'm putting myself into this box here, that likes their coffee.
Okay.
Because caffeine punches, for all of the research that says it's good for us, fine. I'm not going to necessarily negate that, but it does. Caffeine punches your adrenals. It's like this extra little hit. I love my coffee. I mean, I have my 1 to 2 cups every morning. I'm not recommending people do it. It's just something I love doing. And I suspect if I didn't take it, I probably wouldn't need as much of the chill pill. Genuinely,
right.
I suspect I wouldn't. But I love my coffee too much, so I'm going to have my chill pill to help keep the adrenals supported, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we all have our thing. You know, I have my M&Ms. You know, you have your coffee. We all have our little things
that we like. Yeah.
Yes. Just to ensure that we are doing everything else good for us to counterbalance. Yeah. Not only, for example, the sweets or the whatever, caffeine, but also the stress levels that are hitting us. Because let's face it, you just need to turn on the news every single day. And I make that mistake and I go, and then I get hooked and I want to watch the story. But I think, oh, I really wish I didn't see that.
Oh, I know. I've done that. I look at the headline and go, I wish I didn't see that. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about it. Yes, yeah. It's true. And we're constantly sort of raising that kind of, we're just doing that all day.
We're raising the bar. It's not actually a good bar to raise, to be fair.
No, we don't need to.
Like the exercise and the sleep and the whatever.
Yeah.
Now, there's one other we haven't spoken about, and I'm watching now. I knew this was going to happen. I'm going to hit an hour. The creatine, because this is a relatively new discovery for me. My husband's been talking about me taking this for ages. This is really, really important.
I love creatine, and I love it for a few reasons. And one of the main reasons I love it is because in the early days of my career, and I had the gym and I had the clients coming in, and I was encouraging them to take creatine. They either had no idea what it did, or they were terrified of it. Because the stories about, but is that not for big bodybuilders, and does it not do? Creatine, you naturally find it occurs naturally in fish and meat. So vegetarians and vegans do tend to be a little bit low in it. And it helps protect muscle, it helps recovery from training, it helps create something called ATP. And ATP are literally like energy molecules that the body uses when you train, particularly when you do high intensity training and the likes. So creatine, it's part of a protein. And it is, I would say, essential for protecting your muscle mass as we age, even more so. And if you're going to train, it helps the recovery and the stamina, and you seem to be able to just go for longer with it. And then the added bonus, now this is the bit I love, tracking back, that originally it was always about the training and the recovery muscle. It doesn't seem to build muscle in my experience, because I've done weights and measures with clients for decades. I don't think it builds it, but it definitely protects it. And then when you train, you can get more of a bang for your buck, if you like. You recover faster and all the rest. But the little added bonus, and this is the bit I love, is they're now finding that with menopause, as our estrogen levels drop, our brain, which was relying on estrogen, starts relying more on ATP, those little energy molecules that you need creatine to produce. So creatine's found to be helpful for memory as well. Which I think excellent. So it's not just for those young buff bodybuilders, it's for all of us lot. It's great for brain function. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. The side effect is you'll remember things. You may not want to.
When you walk up the stairs, you're like, oh, I know what I went for. I know what I went for.
Exactly, exactly. So when they've done these studies on older adults, as they all get called, they don't always tell us when older adults start, but older adults, their memories seem to improve. And actually in vegans and vegetarians too, because they can be low in it.
Okay. So I think we've really, I mean, we've really hit some amazing things there. And thank you so much, Zana. I mean, I could literally talk to you all day because I find it fascinating. Because the thing is, we've known it's all there, but when you start seeing it and experiencing it in your own body, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Let me look a little bit deeper. So
yes,
thank you. I'm hoping that everybody got out of that. You know, let's get that protein in, but let's get it in the night before, and what supplements are absolutely vital. If there are any questions before we, because we have to obviously sign off within the hour, so we still have some time. So if anybody wants to ask any questions, but yeah, and just do some, get those little spikes of energy going throughout the day.
Get the training in. If you're someone who slumps in the middle of the day, then do your 60-second squats. Oh my gosh, it'll carry you through for 2 or 3 hours. You won't need to lie down, and you won't need to go for the chocolate with your tea or coffee. Just 60 seconds of squats, and then maybe a little protein if you really feel you need something. You'll be sorted.
There was something I was going to ask you, actually. I've always been told, probably by my husband, that it's really good to have coffee, but like a straight coffee, you know, not with all the froth and all the rest of it, before you train. So I ask you, is that...
It's not a bad plan, because if you think about training, and if you think about what we do, if you like, artificially, and how it mimics how we've evolved, training is literally your fight or flight.
No.
So training is it can be the boxing, it can be weight training, which can mimic climbing, or it's your hunting. It's all the movements that we would have evolved doing. So your coffee is a little bit like a hit of cortisol. It's going to get everything revved up, the circulation improving, because you do want the circulation, because yes, your circulation when you train gets nutrients into the muscle, and it gets the toxins and the carbon dioxide out. So you do want everything moving. So I'm not against that. I don't think it does any harm at all. And then if you train afterwards, you almost use and get the whole benefit of it. Lovely question there. Do you mind if I jump in and answer?
Oh, yeah.
Can you take creatine within the window of taking Amino Slim? Really, really good question. For those of you who don't know, Amino Slim is another product we do that does help target belly fat. We didn't spot it. We didn't hit on that one.
Yeah.
It's a fussy supplement, so you do have to stop eating, as obviously, you know, asking the question, because you've clearly asked the right question. You need a 2.5-hour gap for Amino Slim to work, away from all other foods, which includes protein. So in answer to your question, you can't take them together in that 2.5-hour window. If you take Amino Slim, take it going to bed or before training, and take the creatine at a different time of the day.
So, the brand name is Strong Nutrients. It is Zana's brand. So check this out. This is what and I'm going to put on, I've got this little protein shake that I've been making for absolute years. It includes banana, it includes almond milk, and a bit of peanut butter, crunchy peanut butter, ice. It is so delicious. So when I remember I have all the ingredients in, I don't need the M&Ms.
Excellent. Perfect. I love it. I love it. Brilliant.
Thank you so much to everyone who joined. I'm so sorry I didn't do the waves. I've seen so many lovely waves along the side. I haven't touched on those because I will knock my phone over, which is on a very precarious little stand at the moment. But thank you so much for joining us. And we may need to do a follow-up, Zana.
I'd be delighted to. But thank you very much. Thank you.
We will obviously add all the tags and the links in my stories as well. I will tag the products that I'm taking at the moment. And of course, yeah, thank you so much. And we hope you have an absolutely brilliant weekend ahead. Let's hope that sunshine stays.
Exactly. Thank you. It's been so nice to be here. Thank you. Bye, Zan.
Bye.